You know how sometimes the scariest things happen in the most ordinary places? This story isn't about an old haunted mansion or a creepy graveyard. It's about something we use every single day. Public transport. It happened to a college student named Yarun. He lived in a small town, and every evening, he would take the last bus home after his late-night classes. The bus route was long, quiet, and almost always empty by the time it reached his stop. One night, he missed his usual bus and had to take the very last one. The bus pulled up, its headlights dim, the metal side scratched and rusting. Inside, only 2 or 3 passengers sat silently, their faces hidden in shadow. Arun sat near the middle, earbuds in, trying not to fall asleep. The bus rattled along the dark countryside road. But then, he noticed something strange. The passengers weren't moving at all. Not shifting, not blinking, not even breathing. He thought maybe they were asleep until the bus jolted to a sudden stop at a deserted crossroad. The lights flickered. That's when he realized the passengers weren't people. Their skin looked too pale, too stiff. Their heads slowly turned toward him in perfect unison. Arun yanked his earbuds out. The bus was completely silent. No engine sound, no night insects outside, just silence. Then, a deep voice came from the driver's seat. "You shouldn't be here." Aaron's heart slammed in his chest. He stood up to get off, but the bus doors wouldn't open. He turned to the driver, but when the man looked back, his eyes were completely black. The passengers began to rise from their seats, their movements jerky and unnatural, their faces twisted into grotesque half-smiles. Arun pounded on the door, screaming. Finally, with a screech, the doors opened. He ran into the darkness of the road without looking back. The bus didn't drive away. It just sat there. Engine's silent doors gaping open, as if waiting for him to return. The next morning, Arun told his friends, but nobody believed him. They laughed it off, saying he was just tired and hallucinating. But here is the part that still makes his blood run cold. When he passed the bus depot later that week, he saw that exact same bus parked in the back lot, old, broken down, covered in dust. The conductor told him it had been retired for years. So, what bus did he ride that night? And who or what was riding with him? You know, sometimes the creepiest encounters happen in places we think of as ordinarily, like on a bus ride. You expect nothing but quiet streets, maybe a couple of tired passengers, and the familiar hum of the engine. But what if you saw someone who shouldn't be there at all? This story comes from a college student named Marcus. He swears it really happened. And after hearing it, you'll understand why he refuses to ride the late bus anymore. The ride home, it was a Friday night. Marcus had been hanging out with some friends off campus, and by the time he said goodbye, it was close to midnight. He didn't have a car, and the only way back was the last bus heading toward his college town. The streets were empty. Storefronts, dark. The only light came from the occasional flickering street lamp. Marcus climbed on board, and just like most late-night buses, it was almost empty. There were maybe 3 other passengers, an older man asleep near the back, a woman staring at her phone, and Marcus himself. The driver nodded at him, closed the doors, and the bus groaned back into motion. Marcus settled into a seat near the middle, put his bag down, and leaned against the window. It was going to be a long, quiet ride. At least, that's what he thought. About 20 minutes into the ride, the bus slowed down. Not at a busy station. This was the middle of nowhere, a desolate stretch of road, surrounded by trees and shadows. Marcus sat up, curious. Who could possibly be waiting at a stop out here? That's when he saw her. A girl. She couldn't have been more than 12. She was standing alone by the roadside, under the weak glow of a street lamp. She wore a thin, pale dress knot, the kind you'd expect on a chilly night hand. She clutched a small bag close to her chest. Her head was bowed, hair hanging in front of her face, so he couldn't quite see her expression. The bus hissed as the doors opened. Without looking at anyone, the girl stepped on. Marcus felt uneasy. It was late. What was a little girl doing out here all alone? Where were her parents? Why was she traveling by herself at midnight? The girl walked past him slowly, or at least, she moved past him. Marcus leaned a little, listening, and realized something strange. He hadn't heard her footsteps on the bus floor. No creak of the metal steps, no sound of her shoes brushing against the aisle. She slid into a seat a few rows behind him and sat down. Head still bowed, hair still covering her face. The bus started moving again, but Marcus couldn't relax. Every few minutes, he glanced back. She hadn't shifted. She hadn't lifted her head. She just sat there, completely still, and stranger still. Marcus Golden Tea. Hears single sound from her, not the rustle of clothes, not the sound of breathing. Nothing. Marcus told himself he was just tired, that he was imagining things. But the longer the ride went on, the heavier the feeling in his chest grew. He thought about asking the driver if he knew the girl, but something inside him kept him quiet. The other passengers didn't seem to notice her. The woman with the phone never looked up. The old man kept dozing. It was like Marcus was the only one aware of her presence. Every time he looked back, she was in the exact same position. Still, silent, head bowed. Finally, the bus reached the next big stop, a brightly lit station where several people usually got on or off. The doors opened with a hiss. Marcus glanced around, waiting for the girl to move. This was the perfect place for her to get off. Surely, she wasn't headed deeper into the empty countryside. But when he turned to look at her seat, his stomach dropped. It was empty. The girl was gone. Marcus blinked, sat up straighter. He hadn't seen her walk to the front. The doors had only just opened. The driver hadn't called out. Nobody had passed him in the aisle. Yet the seat was completely empty, as if she had never been there at all. Marcus's pulse raced. He stood up and walked cautiously toward the front, glancing at the driver. "Hey," he said quietly, not wanting the other passengers to overhear. The little girl, the one who got on back there. Where did she go? The driver didn't answer right away. He just kept his eyes on the road, hands gripping the wheel. Finally, he spoke in a low, steady voice. "You've seen her too?" Marcos froze. "What do you mean?" The driver sighed, eyes still forward. "She died on this road. Years ago. Some nights, she shows up at the stop, waiting for a bus that'll never take her home." Marcus felt his chest tighten. His mouth went dry. He didn't ask anything else. He just sat back down, staring at the empty seat where the girl had been. The rest of the ride felt endless. Every bump in the road made him flinch. He couldn't shake the image of her head bowed, hair covering her face, silent and still. When the bus finally reached his stop, Marcus nearly ran off. His bag clutched to his chest. He walked quickly through the night, refusing to look over his shoulder. For weeks afterward, he couldn't bring himself to ride the late bus. Every time he thought about it, he pictured that empty seat. And sometimes, just sometimes he swears, he hears the faint hiss of bus doors in the distance, even when no bus is around. So the next time you're in a quiet night bus, and you see someone climb aboard who doesn't quite belong, don't assume they're just another passenger, because some riders never make it to their destination. You know how buses feel different at night. In the daytime, they're just a way to get from one place to another. No one pays much attention. But at night, the atmosphere changes. The hum of the engine feels louder. The shadows stretch longer. Every little detail stands out. This happened to a woman named Julia back in the early 2000s. She had just finished a long double shift at work. She was exhausted, and the only way home was by taking the last bus out of the city. She didn't like riding so late, but it was either that or walking an hour through empty streets. So she climbed aboard. At first, the ride felt normal enough. A couple of people sat scattered across the seats and an older woman near the front, a teenager in headphones toward the back, and one man sitting across from Julia. And that man, that's where things started to feel strange. The passenger in the suit, he was dressed in an old-fashioned suit, neatly pressed, clean, like he had somewhere important to be. But something about him felt off. He was sitting stiff, upright, with his hands folded neatly in his lap. His eyes were open, but he didn't look out the window, didn't glance at the driver, didn't shift in his seat. He just sat there, staring at nothing. At first, Julia thought maybe he was just tired, maybe even asleep with his eyes open, but the longer she watched, the more she realized something wasn't right. When the bus hit a bump, everyone else reacted, grabbing the seat in front of them or swaying a little. But not him. He didn't move an inch. It was as if the bus wasn't even real to him. Julia tried not to stare, but her eyes kept drifting back. There was something unnatural about how still he was. After a few stops, more passengers got off. The bus grew quieter, emptier. Julia risked another glance. That's when she noticed something that made her skin crawl. His skin wasn't tea-pale the way a tired person looks. It was gray. Not the healthy kind of gray you see in bad lighting, but gray like old wax. Like there was no blood underneath. Julia's stomach turned. She thought maybe he was sick. Maybe he needed help, but there was no sign of breathing, no rise or fall in his chest. She leaned forward slightly, trying to see if maybe she was imagining it. That's when she realized his eyes. They didn't blink. Not once. The longer she stared, the more certain she became. Something was very, very wrong. Stop after stop. The bus emptied. The older woman got off. Then the teenager. Eventually, it was just Julia, the driver, and the man in the suit. Julia's heart was racing. She didn't want to move seats because she didn't want to draw attention to herself. She kept her eyes forward, gripping her bag tightly, praying for a stop to come. The silence was unbearable, just the hum of the engine and the faint squeak of the wheels turning. But behind that sound, Julia swore she could hear something else. A faint, low, creaking like stiff joints, straining, like something that hadn't moved in a very long time. She told herself it was the bus. Just the bus. Finally, the bus slowed down. Her stop. Relief washed over her. She stood quickly, rang a bell and made her way to the front. She didn't dare look at him. She could feel him there, sitting exactly the same way. Eyes forward as she reached the doors, though something in her gut told her to glance back, just once. And when she did, her heart nearly stopped. He was still there, sitting stiff, gray skin glowing faintly under the flickering light, hands folded in his lap, head slightly tilted forward, eyes wide, unblinking, staring at nothing, exactly as he had been the moment she boarded. Julia turned to step off, but before she could, the driver leaned closer to her. His voice was low, almost like he didn't want the man to hear. He whispered, "Don't worry, He's been riding this route for years. He never gets off. Julia froze. She wanted to ask what he meant, but her body moved on instinct. She stepped off the bus, and the doors shut behind her. She watched as the bus pulled away into the night, taillights glowing red, disappearing down the road. Julia didn't sleep much that night. She kept replaying the scene in her head as stillness. His gray skin, those lifeless eyes. The next morning, curiosity got the better of her. She asked a co-worker who also used the late bus if they had ever seen a man in a suit. Her co-worker gave her a strange look. "You mean the guy in the gray suit?" "Yeah, everyone knows about him. He's been riding that route forever. My mom used to tell me about him when she took the bus in the 80s. Julia laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. But her co-worker wasn't smiling. "Some say he was a businessman who died on the bus decades ago, on his way home. Others claim he was buried in that very suit, but somehow his spirit never found peace. Whatever the truth was, Julia never rode that late bus again. And the detail that haunts her the most, the way the driver whispered, like he knew exactly what Julia had just seen. Like the man in the suit wasn't a mystery at all. Like he was just another part of the route. Because sometimes the scariest passengers are the ones who never get off."